Welcome back to Symphony of the Night, where we're decompiling a delicious can of cherry Coke. The best Coke. Slightly below cherry Dr. Pepper, in my opinion. But I like them both. Sometimes you need a Coke. We are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. We've been working on the clock tower. That's right, the clock tower. And we'll keep working on that today. I have a few things to talk about before that. Me breaking things mostly and how we're going to fix them. If you're not familiar with the Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev and learn more. You can join us on Discord or check out everything we've decompiled so far on GitHub, following the source code link. I don't have NZ1. I believe NZ1 has been merged in, so I should update the doc repo and get that graph going here. NZ1 is, I think, the last stage that we haven't started in the upright castle. We still have the inverted castle and a lot of bosses to go. But you can see some of that progress in GitHub. Let's look at the main page there. Down at the bottom there will be a README, and it will have the status of course I refreshed the page, the status of all the overlays that we've been working on so far. No NZ1 yet. Is that, maybe that hasn't been checked in. I have to go look at that, or maybe I screwed up the progress script. We'll see. Oh, we do have Coliseum that hasn't been started yet either. But then a bunch in the inverted castle and a lot of bosses, like I said. So over the weekend, Zanimo came through and cleared out a bunch of the pending PRs, including one that I had in draft form for a while. I had been using it in the Doppelganger, the Richter boss fight branch. And it was a change to build all versions that we have of the game all together. And it required just a few things with assets. There's cases where, so we already have the code split and macros defined that allow us to build multiple versions of the game for different, using the same source. But we had a situation where several of the assets, so sprites, sounds, layouts, things like that, those were shared, in the way that they get compiled and written is by tooling that we have. We don't check any of that stuff in. It all comes from disk when we build. Game disk, so you need your own game disk because that's where those files get pulled from. And there are cases where the PSP version of the game, probably all versions of the game, but we're primarily working on the US and PSP at the moment. The PSP version of the game is has different sprites or slightly different asset data than what we have in the US version. And so when that happens, often we're using the same references to that data because the code doesn't change, just the data that's being referenced changes. But so we call them the same thing. We import things with the same file name, and what happens is whoever is the last person to write those files, that's the version you have on the disk. The way build systems work, it looks at all the things that have changed, and if nothing has changed, then we don't need to rebuild the thing that you're building. And in this case, the last person to write that asset is the one who changed it last, but that's still later than any of the source files that have changed. So the last writer wins. And in cases where there's conflicts, then that means the last writer is the canonical version. And so we have a build here. This is built using, or building, pardon me, building all of the versions simultaneously. And everything is green. And that's because the US, most of the US things get built first. The assets get extracted. And all of the assets as those overlays are being built are the US assets. At some point during the US build, as things start finishing up, different files from the HD and PSP builds start getting in. The order that those assets get pulled in is somewhat, it's, the order is deterministic, but it's a build graph. And so as the build proceeds, as things finish, depending on scheduling and other things like that, the graph is just going to choose the next ready node. And so the order that build happens isn't always deterministic. Only dependencies and outputs being deterministic. So, but typically the PSP build ends up last, and that's because its initial starting nodes are put in the order that these are all added is US and then HD and then PSP. So it just so happens that we could flip the order. PSP would get mostly built first. Anyway, so the PSP assets get written, and for things like DAI, and I fixed it already, but cell, which is the stage selection stage, there are things that differ between the PSP version and the US version, and we weren't doing this in CI, so nobody knew that introducing these new assets would break this build, and that's fine. I didn't mean for it to be in CI yet, wasn't ready, but then I did want it to get merged in, and so flipped my draft PR to ready for review, and it got merged in. I didn't realize that there were changes in DAI and cell that would impact that build, and it broke. There were some other things that broke too that I worked on fixing, so it got reverted. That's okay. So to illustrate the problem, I have a clean build here. Everything worked. What should happen is when I run make, it should build again, but when we build again, this time DAI fails, and DAI will continue to fail. And the reason, like I said, is because there is a we put generated files in a gen directory. This directory doesn't get checked in. There's this sprite banks, and it's actually not, sprite banks is probably fine. Sprite banks also writes a file called sprites, and the sprites that get written for DAI are different between US and PSP, and so we end up with this failure. So what I want to do is kind of go through how this is going to get resolved, and like how we do this for other assets. Actually, in this file, we'll see, or in the DAI gen directory, we will have additional directories, PSP and US. And in the PSP, we'll see graphic stage names, graphics banks. Those differ between the PSP and the US PlayStation version. And for example, the stage name is 88K in size, quite a bit different from the one that's used on the PSP. Just from the size, you can see the data in there is obviously different as well. The same thing exists for graphical assets, and so sometimes we'll see that there as well. Those follow the same layout as source. We'll get there eventually. There'll be a US and PSP directories in there for only the things that are different between the two. And so we have, this is a custom tool for Symphony of the Night. It's a tool called Soten Assets. And in here, each of the overlays defines where different binary assets are that we're not going to ever check in. These are things that will come from the disk. And so if there was a hypothetical PC port of the game, for example, you would put in your disk, and then this file could also be used to read all of that data from your disk. It'll know where all of the different assets are on the disk, and it can put them in a place then that the that native game binary could use. Hey Nate, good to have you back. Nice to have you roaming, as always. So what we need to do for DAI is some of these other ones, the graphic stage name, for example. I could put a US directory in front of, and everything just works. I have to do some fixes in the code as well to point it to the correct place. But I'm fairly certain sprite banks won't work that way. And we can try it and see. So I do think sprite banks, we can namespace and we can put a US there. We need to see where it's referenced. One of the great things, but hard things about some mature projects is we have tooling that I think is incredible, this assets tool being one of those things. It's something that doesn't exist, really couldn't exist except for this project. It might actually be portable to some other things, but right now this is where it exists. But it's both critical build infrastructure for us, as well as completely custom. So you can't go find Stack Overflow posts on Soten assets. Nothing like that'll exist. So you have to be a little familiar and go dig in, read code. This is all written in Go, which is, again, kind of different from some of the other things that we have to work on. We always have had a mix of Go, Rust, Python for the year and a half or so that I've been working on this. So I'm going to look at STTAI. Well, we will get back to... I didn't want to look at... I didn't want to do that. Let's find sprite banks. So we have sprite banks. It's being imported. There will be a C file for this. And my guess is that C file includes some generated headers in Gen, but let's confirm that. So if we look at sprite banks, yeah, all it's doing is including Gen sprite banks. The reason it's not just generating the C file, we could have it do that as well. My guess is it needs OVL export and some other things like that, and it makes it a little more straightforward to do it this way. And so what we ultimately want is to do something like this, Gen US sprite banks, but we also need, for the PSP, we want, so far I haven't been adding EU, but we want to import the PSP version. And there's actually a macro for that. It's called Gen version, because it gives you the Gen directory and then the version, creatively named by me. You dig down deep. Been a while. And this would, if it existed, it would import that US version. So let's try that and see what happens. I actually don't know what's going to happen. I think we're going to have to make some changes to the sprite banks assets handler. And we'll try to do it. I don't know if I'm going to be successful in doing it, but we'll give it a shot. So I'm going to build US, and that should be fine. We will regenerate that file, so it didn't end up working, and so now we have to go into some code and see what actually got generated. Let's look at source stdai gen. Let's look at that sprite banks file, and that did just get overwritten. So if I would revert this, oops, let's build US again. I think this will work now. The bummer thing about assets is that it is code base wide. It's a global file. It affects all of the overlays. So yeah, that works fine. So whatever's happening in assets, it's not respecting this name, and this third parameter might not even be a name. I'm not sure what it is. We're gonna have to go look at the code and see. So we're gonna look at tools, Soten assets. This will be in the assets directory, and there should be a sprite banks directory there. I'm going to start with handler. I think this is the entry point, and then most of the work is done in spritebanks.go. So we have a what do we have? We have a calculation based on the address that comes in the args. And what I want to find is where are the names coming from? Usually there's a name. And there is. So this is writing a JSON file to assets. So we should see, when I added that US, there should be assets US. But there's not. Asset path is STDAI US. There we go. And so, yeah. So this does get namespaced as expected into US_spritebanks.json. I think if I was I'll just say, Nate, I don't think I could do what you do. I don't think I would remember anything, but might be chill. Might be relaxing, but that's about it. Oh, new arbitrary code. That's nice. So let's go into the read sprite banks function here and see what that is doing. So this is in the sprite banks file, and this is going to be where the meat is. I'm going to close this. I don't need this anymore. And this is how most of these handlers work. There's some main logic method that'll go through, and what this is doing is looking at the binary from the disk, so the overlay binary. It's been given an address range, and this handler understands what the structs and pointers and general layout of all the data in this file is going to be. And in here somewhere is probably going to be an atomic writer. No, there should be an atomic writer. Where are we writing? Oh, util write file ultimately does write this atomically. So what's happening here though is sprites and sprite banks. Those are being written as hard-coded paths. And what we need is a version in here, but we don't want to put a version in there unless it's been configured to have one. So let's go back and look at how I changed this config. So originally the JSON file was called sprite banks, and so what we're going to do is change this so that the file that gets generated is based on this name instead of being based on this hard-coded path. And so we have to do a couple things. My Go is not the best, so excuse me while I struggle through this. But what we need to do is figure out the base path for sprite banks. And so we're going to build the header file from that name with a .h and use the output directory that gets generated from that to figure out where we should put sprites.c. And I think that'll be enough. To help me out, I'm going to go back to another handler that I have worked on before, which is comp graphics. Maybe not. I'm going to look for something that uses base, which will get the base file name. No, not base. File path. Let's look at file path. We'll just do file path. How about that? So something like this actually is very good. So we'll do the cutscene handler. Not quite what I want, but relatively close. So we need to take the name, which is going to be, it should be in file name. Oh, the file name, we need a little more work here. Let's go back to handler. I think the name is being instructed for us by this point. Unfortunately, a bunch of these are not written consistently. So we are given an output name. I think I'm going to give this the name as well. We'll say that this is the name, and we'll say, let's do it this way. I don't know why types aren't. Maybe it's Go. Does Go not need types if they're all the same? All right, so we have our name. I'm going to change file name to, so I use there, the JSON file name, so I remember what that is. And so now we have the name that was given in the asset config, which should be this. So we'll go back down, and instead of writing then to this other file, we're going to construct our output by doing the same file path join. We're going to join gen. And I like to do this twice. You can do it. Well, does join take var args? Let me look. It'd be nice if I could just keep putting them into the same arg. It does take var args. Okay. Perfect. And now we're going to do the format sprint f, and that's going to be the name that we have coming in, followed by .h. I think I just called that name. Yes. All right, so we have the name now. And we'll use that as the file name for this write file down here. And I'll probably test this out like it is. This will fail, but or still fail to build, but at least I'll see I should see the sprite banks file in the right location. And no Go errors. Amazing. Probably can see already if that other one has been built, but I'll let this finish. So in source stdai gen, I'm expecting to have a US directory, and that does have sprite banks in it, and that's the one that we just built, which is excellent. Graphics banks and the other one are there already. So now the next trick is to, because I didn't clean, we still have the other file in there. The other thing now is to get the correct directory to put sprites in. And so we're going to do what, path or dir? Yeah, dir. And instead of output dir, since we have that already, we're going to join file path.dir sprite banks file name with sprites.c. So let's run that again. And that file should be in there already. Let's just check to make sure that the file exists. Looking at gen US, and yeah, so we have sprites there now. All right, so most of the way done, simpler than I was expecting. So we need a couple things. Like I said, we need this, change this to gen version. That'll give us the correct version file. So gen US instead of just gen. And then in sprite banks, the C file still is the same, no difference there. But then we have a sprites file coming from gen. Now it's going to be gen US for sprites. And likewise, in the PSP version of this, we're going to have to do the same thing. It's going to be gen PSP sprites. And the sprite banks source file will still continue to work the same for both of those. We will have to change assets.pspu and find PAI. So sprite banks here is going to become PSP sprite banks. And I think that's it. So let's try building US first. Make sure that that builds correctly. And so how I'm going to test this, I'm going to build US, then build PSP. PSP should build fine. Then I'm going to build US again. And as long as those all build fine, then I should be able to do the full build with all versions at the same time, and everything will work correctly. So that built fine as well. If we would look in the source directory, in gen, we should have a PSP directory here, and sprite banks and sprites there. That's what I wanted and what I expected. And then when I rebuild US, this should build fine. So something's still not quite right. Let's I thought sprites was the only thing that was still failing. I do have an expected I know this was one of them. We have expected DAI. Is assets. So what we can look at is as expected assets STDAI versus assets DEI. So Sprite Bank shouldn't be being used anymore, I don't believe. Let's get rid of that from assets. There may be one or two more things that I'm still missing. I thought this was the last part of DAI though, that was missing. So I've gone through and done this for a couple different asset types. It's a pain to find these though. There's not a good way to debug them. So we're building fine. Hey, Rune Boy, good to have you. I shouldn't have cleaned, but let's try. And like I said at the beginning of all of this, if I build PSP first and then build US both will succeed, but then if I try to build PSP again, we should see a failure there. But we'll see if this ends up working. There was one other area that I was, and I can't remember specifically where it was, that I was a little concerned about. There must be at least one other asset type though that I've missed. And then we'll get back to Clock Tower. So let's build PSP EU again. And this should, it worked. And build US again. I'm not sure. A little surprised that it is having to build everything, but let's see if DAI makes it. You don't necessarily know where some of the other assumptions. Oh, this worked too. So let's do just a full build. It could be HD actually that's screwing this up as well. I'm not sure. HD is the Japanese version of the game. Let's try it one more time. And we're building. Okay, everything's building. So I must have just had a leftover file from something in the clean, fixed it up. But now this can build repeatedly over and over, and there's no concern anymore. We can touch config assets for PSP and build, and it'll rebuild all of the PSP stuff, which will regenerate all the assets, overwrite anything that may have been shared between the two, and the full build should continue. Oh, it didn't continue to work. All right, so let's figure out what that is real fast. See if we can figure out which file that is. I'm going to do just a regular diff. I have this expected directory which has a clean build in it, and DAI has the generated files specifically for DAI, and we'll look at this DAI and see. And actually nothing in Gen is different. It's actually somewhat surprising. And let's look at assets again. I'm not worried about the only in files. Oh, it does. Okay, so there are some additional sprites that will need to be updated as well. But that's good. So the one that was hard, graphics actually are not terribly difficult. Let's pick one of them. Spectral Sword, for example. We can go to the config. We should have a Spectral Sword config. And really this is finding each of these. And if it's US, adding a US here. If it's the PSP, adding the PSP there. And then going through and if there's any specific includes for that, changing those includes to be the right thing. And those are easy to solve. So there's a bunch of those. They'll have to each be done kind of one by one. And every time you do one, I shouldn't say every time you do one. We have the list of the different ones here. It seems like most of them, pretty surprising actually, that it looks like the palettes, I know those are common. Pretty surprising how many sprites. This isn't common. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different sprites between the PSP and the US. Usually it's nothing. Interesting as well that something like the sealed door has the sprite is different between the two, but the palette is not. Let's look at that and see if we can tell the difference. So this is the US version, the expected version. Looks like a door. And this is the PSP version. Looks like a door. Can you tell the difference? I can't. Hey, don't fluff the pillows. Maybe a little difference. I'm surprised though that this is the first time that has come up. Oh, because sealed door isn't, yeah, that's not common. I was thinking red door. So all of these are going to have to go through and get that treatment where they get, yeah, let's do that. I have the list. Might as well do it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get back to this point. Holding you all captive, waiting for Lock Tower. So I'm going to, we have sprites there. We have the halberd, pillar fire, and pillar. And it's actually enough to, well, no, it's not enough to namespace one. I should have the PSP version open and do those at the same time. Because once you add that gen version macro, you have to have the asset namespaced. So I was the one who chose to do things this way. What I wanted, so an alternative to doing individual assets would be to just namespace all of the assets for the entire version of the game. So putting all the PSP assets, regardless of whether they were shared or not, into the PSP directory, and that'd be relatively easy, and you wouldn't have to special case the assets that differ. I didn't like that though, because I'm a masochist? No. I think it's kind of neat to know the specific things that are different between versions of the game, and this makes that abundantly clear. Make sure that this is the right chair in DAI. Just a few of these and we should have it done. Appreciate the patience. Oh, screwed up the chair. Need to fix that. More than I expected. Try to get Spectral Sword. I think I fixed Spectral Sword in the source already. Oops. Even the Spittlebone. Not sure why this is. Oh, interesting. Spittlebone has the same palette as the Skellerang. If you were at Konami in 2006, 2007, making these changes, you probably would have never thought. Why? I think these are the same palette, so I don't think anything, or same sprite. I don't know, we'll see. That one might take a little work. I've been working on this for about 1.5 years. I wouldn't even say one of the longer running contributors, just a contributor. I found this. Yeah, I found this project, I think April or May of 2024. And was excited to be able to contribute. Still excited to be able to contribute. The project itself started, I think, about 3 years before that. And it was all those. I got in just at the right time. There hadn't been any completed overlays when I started. And I'd like to think that I helped a little bit with tooling and other things like that to get some of that going. And now the velocity, really the velocity I think last fall, about 1 year ago, just started getting insane. And last fall is when the first full overlay, like 100% of an overlay, was decompiled. Almost done. So the way that these, I should talk a little bit about how these PNGs work. We export PNGs, but sometimes we don't have the palettes to go along with them. So often they're exported as just grayscale images. Sometimes there is a palette that can be added. The PNG can be written as a lossless image format. I do think there is a lossy mode. As well, but we use the lossless, and you can then recreate some of these binary graphics from those PNGs. Hey, OTM. If you know Nate, you probably are in the speedrunning community. I found this project based on a comment from a Dragon Blitz video from a while ago. I think I was looking for Soten speedruns, and of course you come across Dragon Blitz. And I need to make sure that I'm getting the DAI version of this. I think that is the right one. And I think he made some comment about the decomp project. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a disparaging comment, but it was more along the lines of like, if it ever happens. And so I went to see how far along it was and if I could contribute at all. Having not ever really been part of anything as big as this. And it turned out that some of the things that I had learned in the past were actually very relevant. All right, so I think that's it. Sealed door, why did I not? Oh, sealed door is out of order. That probably means that these files were split. Good thing I caught that. That would have been odd. All right, let's see. Is it gonna work? Hold on to your butts. Not terribly confident. Yeah. Oh, all of these got pulled in as well, all the palettes. I didn't think that was gonna happen. Did I screw up palettes? I might have put these in the wrong place. No, I didn't. So why are those showing up as namespaced? Yeah, sealed door isn't showing up. No, it is. Oh, sealed door. There it is. So what was the... Well, if I can't get this building, I'll debug this on my own time. I'm going to find reference to PAL sealed door. It's odd that it's not all of them, just some. Oh, drat. I thought this all worked. Yeah, that should work. Just binary data. Maybe I'm getting a error in this file. This is what it is. Pale hunting girl. Yes. Oh, duh. I don't want to override the palettes. I just want to override the sprites. And where is the hunting girl sprite? There it is. And my guess is I did that several places. No? Oh, maybe not. Okay. So then, spelled gen version wrong here. Fix that. Hopefully that was it. Let's go. Fingers crossed. I agree. We are standing on shoulders of giants. In everything, really. I mean, think about all the things that we have to that we get to enjoy because of the work of those done before us. I'm going to clean and rebuild. I don't necessarily think that that is what's going to be necessary, but I want to see if a clean build is going to produce the correct binary. My guess is that there's some other subtlety in here that that I'm gonna have to resolve as well. But it could also be that I just broke the build, and if I broke the build, I'll go debug it. We'll work on some clock tower stuff. Oh, so this is going fine. So maybe it just needed a clean. We'll build again after this and see. So it looks like I may have missed Ghost Bat on the PSP side. Yes. Not US. Yeah, DAI is still broken. Oh, that's because I literally just overwrote the Ghost Bat, which is known to be a conflicting asset. So I screwed myself over on that one. We'll go rebuild those assets one more time and see if this is a clean build. I'm pretty hopeful. If it's not a clean build, then too bad, so sad. I'll work on it later. I keep saying that, but that's what I'll do. This time for sure. Okay, US is clean. HD is always clean. PSP should be clean. And then we'll build it again. And it's clean. So that was it. So yeah, namespacing, all of these is what was required, but now we have a clean build. I am going to add all these in. So it wasn't just this. Like I said, there were things in cell as well. But the major thing is now sprite banks can be namespaced. That wasn't that way earlier. There was an extra comma on this line that was causing some warnings. So this was the palette change, basically the same thing. Looks like that was some copy pasta. Kind of curious that Go didn't complain about that. It seems to complain about everything. And I think that is all. So adding namespace support to palettes and sprite banks, and then namespacing all of the palettes and sprite banks that differ between US and PSP. So I'm gonna post this in Discord and just let Project Oblivion. We were talking about this morning, so I'll let him know that that has been done. Let's see if there was a discussion on Hacker News over the weekend about Git. I had used Git long before GitHub existed, but apparently many people think that they equate Git and GitHub and don't really think of a difference between the two. And I found that surprising. I didn't realize that was a thing. All right, so let's get back to, I think my branch is clean, trap is clean, or light is green, trap is clean. Is that how it goes? Get rid of that superfluous format, and then we'll get back to NZ1. Rebase. And then build. So NZ1, last week we found a function that I couldn't find. It looked like an explosion related function, so we could go back and try to find it again and name it. It may have been in that upper area, the secret room, like up in the attic of the secret room, the explosion for the guy up there with the flying red sword that comes and gets you. Jujutsu, no. I feel like I've heard of. I feel like I've heard of it. Git compatible. I do understand that people hate the interface for Git, and there are some things that I think are not ideal. I think the fundamental theories behind it are fine, and so if you understand what all the components are, it mostly makes sense once you figure out the correct commands for each of the concepts. Let me see. I'm going to look at the CPU debugger, see if this was the right one. Yeah, the 74. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go up and see. I'm going to plug in my controller, see if this is after you kill, I don't remember the character's name, the guy up on top in the attic. Didn't get anything. One second while I try to get DuckStation on here. Why isn't it capturing? 1 second. Oh, I see. I was on the wrong monitor. There we go. So we have the 74 function that we're looking for. And I think this is all set up. Let's see if, yeah, my controller's working. So we do need to go up to the top. It's like I've played this game before. And now I'll die. Streamer, just win the game. The Medusa heads are less annoying than the harpies. And the flea men are even worse. That was easy. Take that, flea man. What a terrible terrible decision by Flea Man's mother. Name him Flea Man. Maybe she wanted him to be a bassist. But didn't work out for him. Too short. Oh, thank you, Snake Squid. Appreciate it. Alright, so this is the guy who... Cloaked Knight. Cloaked Knight is going to destroy me. Let's see if I can... there we go. Oh, so that was not it either. All that work just to not find the function that I was looking for. Alright, we'll pause this and keep going. So I don't know what that function was, and maybe we'll find it one day, maybe we won't. It is some entity that that is in the list of entity updates. As we figure out more, maybe we can revisit it and find out. Could it have been the secret wall? The secret wall was already destroyed. It's possible that it was the effects of the secret wall. Let's see what we have next. We have a clean build, so let's use find. So we want a function. Functions are large that we haven't seen before. We have a very large function in 2A4BC. We can check that against the duplicates list and see if it shows up there. I think that's probably the best thing to do right now. I don't want to... It doesn't show up in duplicates. Surprisingly large. What complicated things are in the clock tower? Let's see if we can find it. If we can find it, then I'll work on that one. And if I can't find it, then I'll choose something smaller. So I often do this to see what I want to work on next. Just using find and some other tools to sort by how large a function is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's complicated or anything like that, just that it might take a little longer. Sometimes it doesn't. But then when the functions don't have a symbol name and just have an auto-generated name, and it's large, and it's not in the duplicates table, those are all good indicators that it's a unique and new function, and that's duplicate functions need to be dealt with, but new functions, there might be something we haven't seen before, and so I like to get that complexity out of the way if possible. So let's play. Oh, there is one thing I haven't gotten. I don't have the audio turned on high enough to do the gear puzzle. And I am gonna die. I'm gonna reload my save state. And we'll try to get over there. Fuck. So, oh, I need to share this with you all. Oh, that's right. Let me look. I'm going to look this up. So you can go to soten.fun. That's a wiki created by Symphony of the Night Decompilation contributors. And Duck Station. I don't have a button for Duck Station, so I have to find the list. In the clock tower, yes. So the who is this? The guy who opens his cloak and all the bats come out. What's his name? Can't remember what his name is. Let me find. So we want Soten Clock Tower mini boss. Or is he only in the upside down? Giant Bat is in the upside down version, right? Karasuman. Yeah, so this could be Karasuman, and that other function actually could be related to Karasuman as well. Malphus is also the name. What is the... I forget what name. My guess is that he would be the most complicated, but my current save state is missing, or has the castle flag set, and I don't have a good way to look up castle flags at the moment to reset that boss fight. That's too bad. In my other save states, I don't know if I have the abilities necessary to get over to the clock tower. What do you need? You need at least gravity boots for double jump. Sorry, just trying to think of what other easy way to get there. That's my guess, is that it's Karasuman. We can look at the assembly though and see. That's probably the best thing. If it is a more complicated boss like that, yeah, that's what I was expecting. Some text that says Chiral, and that is that's used in a lot of the more complicated enemies. And there's two switches there, so let's try it and see what we can find. I'm gonna go to decomp.me. Let's go to a much earlier. Thank you, David Tyler. Don't fluff the pillows. You have a great day as well. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Can't middle click new anymore. I think I can get rid of these though, because they're done. I'll be able to find them later. So we're gonna go to decomp.me, Castlevania Symphony of the Night preset, copy in this assembly. If that other function is also related to Karasuman, We won't see it here. There'll be something like this, create entity from entity, and the offset into the entity table would tell us what that function is. We have a bunch of sound effect IDs. We'll go look those up. Those probably will tell us something. A bunch of them. Let's do that. Let's go top to bottom with sound effects and see if we can get these. Okay, we have an unknown. That doesn't help. 620. I'm expecting like flapping feathers, things like that. Bat echo. Okay. Where is the... Isn't the bat... Oh, would this be giant bat in the regular castle? No, giant bat is inverted castle. All right. Sorry, I got rid of my tab here, and now I need to get back to it. Where are you? Okay, 635. So we have 6D E. Synth bubble short. These are not telling me a whole lot. Wing flap, okay. I'm gonna convince myself. That's Karasuman. Same value. 723. 721. 660. Give me something else. Feathery. Fireball. Yeah, okay. He shoots feathers. And that's it. So until we know better, I'm going to assume that that's what that is. Since I don't have a breakpoint, though, do I really want to work on this? I'd like to work on something that I know what it is. So let's go back and find another one. We know the harpies. Let's try to find this one. ECOC. See if I make sure I haven't started that one yet. All right, so back to Duck Station. We'll put that breakpoint in. Yeah, unfortunately, my save, maybe I should go get a new save. My save has a lot of the one-time flags set already. So we know up here is Fleeman, and my guess is it's not this sword. We hit it. Okay. So possibly, let's go up and look. If I don't know if Dizik's lurking, but usually Dizik tells me to disable the function, which would be a reasonable thing to do. I'm going to disable the breakpoint for now and go up. I don't think the sword can be killed separately, which is too bad. Can it? Maybe it can. Let's see. No, yeah, I don't think the sword has its own hitbox. That's too bad. I would like to kill the sword. And let's re-enable the breakpoints. Oh, no, that's not what I did. Re-enable the breakpoint. See if that's triggered anymore. It's not. If I leave and come back, he's back again. So this could be Cloak Knight, it could be Cloak Knight's sword. Let's see. That's a little more interesting to me to know what it might be. And a little shorter. Yeah, I don't think this sword is destroyable. I feel like isn't there other enemies like that where you can destroy their weapon? I know the guys who are carrying like the arc skeletons, you can kill the arc and then they run away. And this is about half the size of that other function, which should go a little quick. So we have an entity extension. Sometimes M2C does this, and I'm not sure why. It will go and kind of suggest where fields should be in structs, and basically say, I tried all these structs and it was none of these. Other times, we have an illegal entity extension specifically for this case, and so that should always match. So I'm not sure what was happening here that it didn't match. Yeah, you can get Yorick's head, yeah. We did top, so that's our top. Or inverse keep. We did that a couple months ago and found that code. So there is an entity Yorick head function. So I'm going to get rid of these. I don't think we need them. This is Cloak Knight. Does Cloak Knight exist anywhere else? Let me look at the fandom wiki isn't always the most reliable, but it's a good starting point when we don't have anything better. He's in the clock tower and reverse clock tower. And the Hell Garden in the Saturn version. It doesn't really say anything else about him though in that. Okay, so let's get this compiling and then we'll go. The function declarations, we won't need any of those, most likely. This is likely an init. And then to get this to compile, the remaining ones are unknown entities or unknown fields in a struct. So thinking about if we have an idea of what this entity is and what logic exists for this particular entity, it gives us some idea of what might be happening, kind of helps identify what code might do what. One thing that's kind of curious here is we're creating two child entities. I'm going to put this in the context before we get going. Sometimes I like to regenerate this initial decomp, and it's helpful to have the right signature. And so we know that there is the sword that flies around, and it probably is tracked as a separate entity, but there's a third one as well. Oh, the third one is he has a like the outline around him, like his aura, the red shiny aura. That's probably the other one. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with that. There's some extra arguments here that I don't think are there. Let's fix these other things though first. We're going to be adding an entity type is size BC. So when you see a plus BC here, really it should be +1. And two of those is 178 hex. And so this is going to be Z priority of the next thing. So I'm going to, we don't know which one is which. So I'll just call them child 1 and child 2 for now. And that's probably what temp v02 and temp v08 are. But I'm going to make those variables and self pointer +1, and we're going to be creating child 1 here. And this will be child 1 Z priority, most likely. Priority, I can spell. And the next one will be child 2 Z priority. And child 2 is going to equal self +2. And like I said, I don't think those arguments are actually there. And so all of these other values, looking at this, there's more code that has to do with child 2. So my guess is child 2 is the sword, because I think the aura is just going to exist on its own. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of code that needs to know anything except where the parent exists, like what are the coordinates of the parent's position. So we're going to take 200 minus BC minus BC. Oh no, it's 200 minus BC. Come on, minus BC. Yeah, there we go. That gives us 88. So 88 is, we have entity extension that starts at 7C minus 7C. That's 12 bytes into the entity extension. So I'm going to call this entity extension, we'll say child. I could use a legal. And do we know what type this is? It's listed as a 32-bit signed. So I think we would be in the third offset of signed 32. Let's do that for now. And then we'll come back and name that later. So we want child 2, ext illegal, signed 32, offset 3, and offset 4. And I'm just doing this to get this to compile, and we'll come back later and fix it. Do I want 3? 1, 2, 3. We want offset 4 and 5. Yes. 193. I think we're gonna have the same basic thing. So child 2 equals self plus 2. This time we have an unsigned 16. We're not 4 bytes earlier. 10 bytes earlier. So we want 196 minus BC. Let's offset 1E. Oh, that's going to be inside then. Did I do that right? I didn't do that right. Hold on. 96 BC. It's BC. Okay. 1E is going to be part of the entity. And so we can look at the entity struct. I think this is offset 1E. I could be wrong. So that's the rotate. Oh, and this makes sense for the sword. And it's going to be a plus equals. Not quite. It's a plus equals with a mask. It could be 2 different steps. We'll have to look at the PSP version to figure that out. Oh, and not self, but child 2. All right, 1 more of these. 1 AC. 1 AC minus BC. Minus BC. It's offset 34, which is flags. Down at 288. Then we should be done. Well, no. We'll be compiling at that point. But I do think this self plus 2 is going to be the sword. So we're going to do child 2 flags 4 equals 2000. And we're compiling 67%, not the best. And do we have this? Not yet. So there's a few globals here. The only global that we're going to need at the end is this top one. Oh, there's some debug code here. We're going to see that if the debug flag is set, case FF, we would be able to use the second control pad to control the Cloak Knight. That's interesting. We don't always have that ability. No, not to control him. Just to print some additional information to the screen. Sorry. Got my hopes up, and then they were dashed. I'm not sure what these other entities are going to be. So I'm going to make a third entity pointer called entity, and we'll use that for both of these cases. This looks like a parent pointer. It's a little strange. That So yeah, I'm not sure what these other entities are. So whatever this, there's an entity cluster here. Basically, 3 entities are all being created consecutively in memory. That's not common, but it's not uncommon. It's just a little unique. It happens a lot with bosses. Not so much within stages. That's right. The debug control allows you to step through different animations. I think we actually have a header that basically will fill in this whole spot. Block 190. This default, this is all going to happen after the switch. So I'm going to move it down now. There probably are certain steps that won't hit this case. And so when we see block 90 at the end of a case, we have a break, and if we don't see block 90, then it's a return. And this case 6 already had a return, so nothing more to do there. I always switch these to line comments from block comments because I like to be able to nest comments later or comment out blocks. So for all these are breaks. Nested, kind of ignore the nested ones. And yeah, they were all breaks, except for the one that was already a return. The way that entities are written is effectively as state machines, and each case in the outer switch is a node in the state machine. We have a bunch of warnings over here. Not too worried about those. Self is undeclared. 294. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, parse error before rest. I do need to worry about this. 279. You did a dot here. There we go. Oh, we're already at 80%. Just moving this block out of that switch and putting it in the right place helped quite a bit. Next, let's see what to do next. We go through and clean up variables. Most of this code is written in a style that doesn't use many local variables, and so if it seems obvious that a variable can be removed, I will remove it. Interestingly, this usually M2C creates a variable for the switch input, but not in this case. This temp v0 will be a real thing, and we'll call it prim index. We will have at least one primitive, and all of them I think we should be able to call prim. I got rid of this G-pad pressed. I guess I could get rid of the globals first. That's what I should have done first. Get rid of the globals. Are there any more references to that? Nope. I mentioned this when I'm getting rid of globals, but in case you haven't watched before and haven't seen how we do this, we're able to give certain addresses in memory names, but we can't give certain addresses in memory field paths into a struct. So instead we give them this underscored name, knowing that there is a player, in this case it's a macro, but really it's a struct in memory, and that we're going to access it by field. And we know that we need to come in and replace those underscores with dots to get proper field access. And then we have our global taken care of, and it will compile to the right thing. And that's all the globals gone except for the one init, which we won't be able to get rid of. Same thing with GAPI. These are all struct access. And so we specify the symbol at what address it needs to be, which makes compiling or decompiling easier because we get all those symbols for free then, but we need to fix them up before continuing. Sometimes this prim index assignment is before getting the primitive from the array. Sometimes it's after. Not clear at the moment which one it's going to be, so I'm going to leave it like that. When we get to the PSP, we'll be able to tell which operation happens first. So I'm looking for variables to get rid of. I'll get rid of casts along the way too. Most of the time those are unnecessary. Let's go back up there and see. This, to me, this looks like the -1. Based on the code below, I think the +1 for Z priority is going to be the sword, so child 2 seems to be the sword. And child 1, that would make child 1 the glow behind him, or the outline. And I think that makes sense with the Z priority. Z priority is when you're drawing what things come in front of what. A higher priority means it's closer to the player or more in front. Lower priority is more in back. And so it makes sense that the outline would be behind the Cloak Knight and the sword would be in front of him, I think. But let's verify that that's the case. I think I'm up here still. Yeah, okay, so the sword is in front of him. This squirrely fellow. But yeah, the sword does draw in front of him. Yeah, and unfortunately it's not destroyable. Much more enjoyable to be destroyable. He has me pinned in this corner. And so then when we go back to look at what makes up that Cloak Knight, basically we have 0, 1, or sorry, 1, 2, 3. Normal people don't start counting at 0. 4, 5, 6. 6 actions, or we call them steps, but there's 6 things that sword knight can do, and so one of them is going to be how does he move, one of them is going to be how does he attack, likely like if he gets hit, what is the animation there. And one thing I forgot to do along the way before thinking about variables, I should get rid of any of these go-tos. The go-tos usually are not there in the final version. And so if they can be removed quickly, that's helpful. Sometimes easier said than done. So here we have to look at the context. What is this var v0? This is the reason that I wanted to do this now, thinking about getting rid of all these other variables. This could be, if you ignored this, the fact that some other code is going to branch here, and just looked at these two lines together. Var v0 is step s plus 1, and then we're assigning it back to step s. So we could rewrite that as step plus plus, but we don't know that everything going to block 62 is going to do the same thing. It might set var v0 to a specific number, it might decrement it, we don't know. So we have to go and see what the other uses are. In this case, though, fortunately, they are all +1. So why did GCC generate this and not have the go-to include the increment? I don't know. It's possible that it didn't. No, it must have known that this was self. So I'm not sure. So in all of these cases, though, fortunately, we can just do a self step s plus plus. It's not always that easy, but we also need to know what happens afterwards. In this case, we would break out of this switch, which then breaks out of the outer switch. We need to make sure that that is what's going to happen elsewhere as well. Same thing with this one. And in the original one, we're breaking out of this switch and then breaking out. So that's fine. Sometimes I forget to check that first. And then it's much harder to debug later when the control flow doesn't do what you think it should do. But that gets rid of that var v0 variable as well. And there's a few more. Block 57. I think that this is going to be the same type of thing. It's nice when they're relatively simple. Just duplicate code. Nothing complicated. But there is a break. The optimizer comes in and decides that that code can be deduplicated. I'm going to do this, I think, on the PSP. So we're incrementing this value by 8 and then checking the total against A0. There's a bunch of ways to write this. You could do plus equals 8 and put that in line here. You could do plus equals 8 and then read from that field again in this condition. What is the right way to do it? The PSP will tell us. This is what I meant earlier when I said sometimes M2C will pull this out into a variable where it doesn't need to be a variable. Facing left is almost universally just checked without anything, and usually this syntax, or the way that this is written, is having velocity x assigned here. Velocity x is a fixed type. velocity y is probably set next, and out of order is something that GCC does a lot. It's not always obvious why GCC does things out of order, but sometimes looking at this almost looks like a mod. Not quite. I think this var v0 is necessary. So it's being divided by 32. That might be what it is. I think it's temp velocity x divided by 32. And I think velocity y is that way too. It looks like it's divided by equal. So it's just slowing down the velocity. And we get to get rid of a lot of this extra math. This is how compilers do math without floating point. This one's a little easier. It looks like a timer. We can do a minus, a not minus minus here. Let's simplify that. That break is fine. And I'm not paying too close attention, but it does look like we're getting a little closer. But our number here, we need to get this number. It'll be in the high 99s when we're done. We won't make it to 100, but we'll get as close as we can. So this step 6 is when, oh, that's what the allocate entities are here. So this step 6 is when the Cloak Knight has been destroyed. It looks like yeah, it's an explosion. It's creating an explosion. So that is the death step. And that's why we return early, because we don't need to do all of this other stuff. This is probably setting up things either related to the sword or otherwise. Or maybe where he's going to move next. We do have a macro for this. Not a macro. We have a debug include. So it's not terribly important to compile that. I will look it up. Yeah, pad 2 anim debug. So this ends up slotting in right in there. So not terribly important to debug it. I will just pull this out and throw it in there. And then I don't have to worry about that section. Symbol button. There must be cases where the button isn't circle. Okay. Let's see if how many of these are gone. Not many so far. So this seems to be like a rotational velocity, S0. That's a reasonable variable. The temp S4 and S3 probably are real things too. And I think that they're being overwritten. So I'm going to call temp S4 pos X. It looks like often we don't get the same registers in the PlayStation version of the game, GCC compiled PlayStation version of the game, but it looks like here that these variable names reflect the registers that are being used. It looks like here these might be the same variables, which is helpful. It's just not something that comes up often. But nice to have. Not gonna complain. So any of the temp S3s and S4s are probably pos X and pos Y. And I'll keep making that assumption until proven otherwise. Yep. Seemed to work out for pos Y. I'll just go through each of these and then do a wildcard replacement. Seems fine for pos X. That seems fine. Seems fine. Got 3 already. So I'll do regular expression. And replace all those. And it looks like I missed temp S4 along the way. These look like they'll end up being plus equals. So temp S0 and temp V1 probably, like I said, I'm going to say X velocity and Y velocity. Or velocity X and velocity Y. We do it that way. It's like most of these other temp V1s are already gone. Not quite. The more of these I can get rid of at once, the better off things will be. So we'll try to get the rest of those temp v1s gone, and then get rid of the temp v0s. These end up being used the same way pretty much throughout, which is convenient. So all the temp v1s are gone. V0s, or the V registers, are used for return values and temporary values. Oops. Not what I wanted to do at all. This is that same timer. This temp v0 value is different. Down here it is being used again as a timer. So I can get rid of this one. But the argument to the return value of this atan and argument to cosine and sine, that is going to be a variable. So I can't get rid of that one. This looks like that timer again. Yeah, this one I'm not sure about. It may be a real maybe a real variable, but maybe not. So it looks like I have v0_4 and v0_7. The rest of them I will get rid of. Varus 0. S registers are used for variables. I think that this can be just the absolute value of the square root. And temp low, there are macros to do the squaring. I don't like them, but frequently get called out in PRs about them, code reviews. So I will look it up. SQ macro. I can never remember it, which is why I don't use it. Right. So varus 0 was nothing. Varus 0_2. Same thing. Same absolute value. This one does look like it is going to be a variable though, because it's used multiple times. Greater than equal to, so greater than 48. Is it equal to 48? No, that's a little different. It's a clamp function. We do have macros for that too. Those also, I never remember what they are, so I don't tend to use them. A0 is gone. I think low is gone. Low is usually used in multiplication and divisions, but if nothing is using it for that, the compiler can use it for something else. This random value likely is a variable as well. I usually call it roll. We have a rand function, so I don't want to collide with that symbol. That other one is going to be an angle. A few more. That one. existed. So this is RV0_2 is absolute value of angle. So we can get rid of that one. Getting close. RV0_3 is gone already. 4 is gone. 5 is gone. Then we have that one remaining temp v0. So there are a few of these that need to be removed. I'm going to use the PSP version to figure out what those are. I'm going to make one more pass through this. All I've been doing is clean up. Haven't really been watching where the assembly differs. We're pretty close in general, so I'm not too concerned. Get distance to player. There's no argument to that function, so that'll get rid of that. And what is this? 65. Is there no argument to random? I guess not. I don't know what the range is of random, but it doesn't look like it takes a variable. 77, or an argument, sorry. There's a move here. It looks superfluous. There's a couple things that it could be. It could be that this is the wrong sign. I don't know. There's several things that it could be. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm also not going to take a lot of time to figure it out, because as other things, moves come and go, and as other things get worked out, it may end up going away. We'll see some consistent uses of variables. So this offset 16, the offset 34 in the entity extension. The 16 is here. We may start getting an idea what those are, and we can start thinking of what we want the entity extension struct to look like. '89 move entity. Here, the subtraction, the compiler chose unsigned 16 offset 2, but it should be assigned 16, and we're going to see that throughout. I'm going to do a global replacement for that. '97. So this may have ended up being a clamp function after all. Let's try it. I think let's see, what do we want? If it's greater than, so we want clamp max, I think. This will, it's not going to make a huge difference. I don't know if it'll make any difference. Oh, no, it did. Yeah, the way our clamp macro works, the argument is going to be expanded multiple times, and so we can't use the clamp macro. I don't know what's causing the additional shifts down here. Possibly var s0 is not the correct type to assign 16. Maybe it would be better off as assign 32. Yeah. 105. Looks like I missed the minus minus. And this one should also be signed. Not sure where the -1 is coming from. Possibly this is sign 32. That's still odd. So instead of getting a branch not equal to 0 instruction, we're getting a shift right arithmetic, and then a check of -1. Not sure why that's getting generated, as opposed to just checking against 0. Again, a no-op and a move that may or may not be anything. May get resolved when other things get resolved. Step towards self plus 186 is child 2. Oh no, it's child 2 plus. So we want 196 minus BC, which is one entity minus BC. Let's offset 1E. I looked that up already, and now I can't remember what it was. Let's rotate. The argument order is wrong. Now the parser before comma. Now the registers are right, so this is putting the C0 constant in arg2, but it's doing it first as opposed to second. The argument 1, I was wrong. So it's loading these in the wrong order, and I'm not sure why. But again, I think we can deal with that on the PSP. So I'm going to keep going for now. Try to get as much of this as we can. The choice to generate a branch not equal to 0 versus a branch equal to 0 is odd. Oh, it could be something like this where velocity x is getting set, and then if it's not facing left, then we're going to set, or if we are facing left, we're going to set. Not quite. Sometimes that does happen. Not sure what's going on there. Okay, 190. This wasn't quite right. I was kind of hoping it was. We could try a shift equals. I don't think this is going to be right though either. Yeah, it's not going to generate as much support code. It could be a mod equals. That's unlikely though. Oh. No, it is a mod equals. So what is going on? Why is this not? Why are we getting the shift left? Mod equals is a little odder than divide by equals. Velocity x is a fixed point, which means 16 bits are used for an integer and 16 points are used for the fractional component. And so by doing a mod equals, you're taking that and moving it all down to the lower 5 bits. And that, unless it's not, to be dividing by something much larger. If it's the 1F is what's the hint to me that this is a divide by or mod. 1F is 31. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be divide by 32. It seems like just the moves and the shifts are in the wrong location. Not sure. Come back, look at it with the PSP. 243. Almost done with this first pass, and then we'll go look at the PSP and see what we can find. That is different. This is assigned. $246. Do I have velocity y as a... Odd that we're getting a load half unsigned when velocity y is assigned 16. This addition is also a little strange compared to how velocity x is being calculated. Oh, duh. This should be signed as well. No, that didn't fix it. So we're stuck with a shift left, shift right again, which is taking a 32-bit value. Actually, let's take this casting out. I don't think that's going to change anything, but taking a 32-bit value and converting it down to a 16-bit value. We have child 2 here again. And again, the wrong order. Velocity x, or velocity y minus x 400 is the same as fix 0.25. Missed the comment from Arc611 from a while ago. Can't you get Yorick's head only? I believe so, but I think if you destroy the body, the head explodes, if I remember correctly. We spent some time on that. 250. I was off by 1 here. All right, so 93%, pretty close. Let's see. What time is it? 2:30. I'm going to be able to start the PSP version, but probably not finish it. Let's find this. And so the best way I've found to find the PSP versions is to choose something unique. The entity IDs are actually pretty good, and we have a lot of them here. And they should just be used once per function, so that's pretty good. But then the sound effect ID. So between the two of those, I think we should be able to find it pretty easily. So I'll start with the entity IDs. So there's a couple functions. This 4960 uses it twice, so I don't think it's that. So we're left with 6B. Or sorry, B8 and 60 there. I'm going to change that to one of the sound effect IDs. We'll try 71E. And that gives us the B8, which is that first one. We do have a little bit of primitive. Shoot. Didn't choose the right preset. We're going to start over. We don't need to start all the way over. But we'll have to decompile again. M2C did figure out that this was an entity as the first argument. It's super impressive to me that it can do that. I am gonna get rid of this. First, I'm gonna fix primitive. Primitive is on PSP. I have an extra 4 bytes after the pointer. And so we need to add that, but then the rest of the source should be fine. 76% here. And our variables are actually pretty good. We do have a little bit too many. There is some additional stack space we need to get rid of. There are things like this on 26. No, that's just a register issue. 30. I'm trying to figure out if there are variables being used here or not. 31, there's a sign extend. And it doesn't look like there needs to be, so I'm going to change prim index to assign 32. Will that get rid of that? Yeah, we have the one sign extend to 32-bit, and that's it. So that seems fine. Yeah, this is out of order. No, maybe not. Let's look at M2C. Very out of order. Flags being set first. I was right. Prim index comes next, and then the primitive. This is a pass-through assignment. U comes before V. U and V are like X and Y. This also is pass-through assignment RGB. That's the correct order for colors. Variety draw mode. We have our addition here. We do have a third argument, it looks like. Let's see what the signature for that is. No, there's only 2 arguments. So M2C doesn't know if something goes into the A2 register, whether it's an argument or not. So it's assuming that it is. And we should be able to see what A2 was. I guess it didn't choose a variable for it. It just threw it in there. So the -1 probably came from Z priority, and that was in the branch delay slot, I'm guessing. Yes, A2, there it is. So otherwise that looks fine. M2C, or not M2C, MetroWorks produced very similar code where the default case, or the case after the switch, gets placed effectively in line here, and then there's a bunch of go-tos to it. I'm not sure why both of them do that. M2 or MetroWorks usually is pretty linear, and the code is usually where you would expect it to be, but in this case, it's not. We're doing a plus equals on the rotate, and my guess is that rotate's being used then throughout. We'll have to go back and look, though. So this ends up being the rotate variable and not the velocity x variable. And it is red again. So I'm going to try to start fixing this. Kind of pay attention to what I'm doing. This offset 13 to keep track of where, so child 2 is being created, it looks like somewhere much higher. We'll try to figure out where that is. The ordering up here is kind of strange. It's probably worth looking at the assembly for this instead of M2C's generated code, but sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Get distance to player X. Does that take any args? It does not. Over switch. The substeps are just smaller state machines inside of the bigger one. shifting by 12 is converting a PlayStation format fixed point number into the Symphony of the Night format. All that seems fine. Step towards. I don't know if it's, we'll check later if it's an explicit check against 0 or not. We may or may not be able to tell, I'm not sure. 3, move entity, decrement, prim. All this is very similar. Oh, interesting. So abs is on GCC, it's a built-in, and so you don't get a function call, but on PSP you do get a function call, and so they're putting it inline here, which I'm fine with. We can try that, and that gets rid of a variable that might not otherwise be being used. So now we get rid of 1. And I broke something. Looks like I got one too many parens. Let's go and start looking at where the differences are. Until the stack is aligned, there's going to be a bunch of differences that are harder to resolve, some moves and some reads from the stack that are off. I'm going to ignore those for now and just focus on things that would be affected directly by code instead of things that are affected by variables. So moves, I'm going to ignore. Loads and stores with the stack pointer register, I'm going to ignore those as well. Here's one case where the variable that we're using is being stored on the stack in our implementation, but it was stored in variable that's associated with S2. That's here on line 66. So we can highlight S2 and see where else this one was being used, if anywhere. Down here, 98. This artan position actually appears to be that same variable. And so what was this? I called it roll. But it's really angle, so I'm going to rename roll to angle. And then down below, oh, and we know then that because it's the argument to cosine and sine, that this is a float, and it's a float of 0.12518. Let's check that on line 66, make sure I got that right. Yeah, that looks good. So we have angle now, and what we should see is that same offset being used. Let's fix that other one. We're going to change that to angle as well. And we have 2 angles now. We don't only need 1. And we get a register. And down below on line 99, we're using it again. Maybe this is angle. Maybe I screwed up and did the wrong one. So let's revert that. And var S02 is what we're going to call angle. And so the hope then is, let's see, go back to 66. Sorry, 65 now. That we got a register, and everywhere we see that register, it's being used the same way. And we're not quite that lucky yet. It looks like maybe this is being assigned and then a plus equals. Did that get us a little closer? Yeah, not quite. Not quite. Oh, I see. Our fall through here is using the S2 register already, and we can't control it. Actually, it's using S3 up here, so that's but that's out of our control. So let's see if those registers are the same now. 91. It looks like this isn't angle here. So it looks like I may have chosen the wrong one again. Yeah, it looks like it ends up being this one instead. Yeah, the arg A0. I'm going to revert that again. We'll go back to temp B0 and call that one angle. One of those is angle, I know it. That makes more sense for the args there to be angle. Mostly we want the same registers to track, if possible. And I said I wasn't going to do that, but then I did it anyway. We have this mask here. This is a 1/16th rotation. So this looks like we're storing this and then doing the and equals later. And this is probably a plus equals, which is why they're doing it that way. And so this will be fixed. So 0.606. What's 0.125 divided by 2.625. Oh, it's too big. Oh, we're much smaller here. Okay, so we need to divide that 0.625 divided by 16. Well, that's a disgusting number. So we need 1 divided by 56. Let's try that. All right, 131. It appears that so this is a link or a reference to player. I think that these are pulled out into variables. I put them back in here, but I think it's going to be a variable. I'm not going to muck with that yet. Some odd stuff here on 146. Are we pulling these out into variables? Let's look at M2C. Oh, am I doing self-rotate? Yeah. Minus 400, yeah. So M2C generated the same code. What's... Oh, it's a pointer. Probably have screwed that up in most of the step towards. No, it looks like that's fine. So stack is still bad. Let's see if there's any other major issues. Yeah, so this whole section is, well, like I kind of thought, it seems off. So our child calculation is up here, which is strange. Velocity X, looks like these are sine 32s. They're getting pushed to the stack, which I can't control yet. Pause X and pause Y. Those look like they're being treated as sine 16s. So we need to get some of the types right. Here we have another pointer. Off by 256 again. It's going to be 4.0 divided by 256. It's going to be 1/64th. A bunch of moves and an add. Where is this? Add 88. Oh, the one thing I didn't do was look for the divide by equals. Let's look at those. 185. Let's see if those look correct and see what M2C came up with. M2C is not always the best at finding those. So shift by 5 is divided by, and the whole less than 0 thing is how it compensates for dividing by negative numbers. Missing from here, it's actually quite a bit of... Oh, no, never mind. That's just the division. Everything else looks fine, but it is not quite right. So here it's getting pushed back to the stack, and then a subtraction is being done. Oh, that's what it is. It's velocity minus equals velocity divided by 32. That makes more sense. So we made a bunch of changes. We're not there yet. I'm going to test this over on the PlayStation. See if we're any closer. 97%, so pretty close on the PlayStation. Let's see what is missing still. 67. The order of these is probably shifting first and then multiplying. No. maybe where the negation is happening. No, the negation is happening later. There we go. Offset 16 is supposed to be signed. There's some out of order business going on, probably related to the move. That branch not equal to 0, I'll have to solve that over on the PSP. The rest of this is looking pretty good. Register issues. So there's just two real issues remaining on the PlayStation. We'll come back tomorrow. My schedule tomorrow is going to be a little funny. I don't know if I'll be here in the afternoon or not, so we'll see what happens then. Let me see if... Did I get rid of both of these now? Just one. I'll try to get rid of those as well. Figure out what variables we still need and which we don't. So if you're just joining, station identification, this is made up of wires. And we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night since 2024. Just a contributor to the Symphony of the Night project. Enjoy doing it, enjoy the game, enjoy decompiling. Come back tomorrow and we'll do some more. That's all I got. Adios. Appreciate it.